You have the complete, different operation with private mercenaries like Blackwater Worldwide, who's now outside the U.S. coming in and going up against U.S. citizens. So I wanted to talk about his research into that, and then just some of the horror stories he's witnessed over the years and things that are happening. You hear about England, where of a toddler in a government preschool, they feed them hot sauce there, and if they don't like the hot sauce, that's there. Then police come and they're put for life into a racism database and lose basically their liberties. You think that's crazy. Well, it's meant to be crazy. It's meant to get everybody in the system, to get them in now. And it's the same thing here in the U.S. I mean, the government is predatory. It is coming for you, period. Remember, this is a government that thousands of times marches U.S., British troops into gas chambers, murders them in sarin VX nerve gas test, and then tells their families they died of the flu. This is a government that puts mercury in our vaccines, fluoride in our water, sodium fluoride, knowing it hurts us. We have their own documents on that. This is a eugenics superstate whose number one job, we have their own documents, destroy the family, break down the sovereignty, debase the dollar. It's all happening. And Ralph Winterud, I think it's best you describe yourself, what you think people should know for an audience that may not know who you are, about how you got started in this and what you've discovered.
Well, I got started in this. I was in the telecommunications business, and I had the largest privately held telephone connect company in Alaska. And when I went to bid this, I found out that they had added $7 million to a sealed bid, and I took it to the Supreme Court, and they said they couldn't see the problem. And I said, what in the world is going on? I mean, we got a couple of pieces of paper that a 10-year-old kid could figure out. They added $7 million to a sealed bid. So I got around and I started doing research.
But hold on. Explain what that means for people.
Well, what that means is I had a bid for $5 million, and these other people had bid $1.5 million. They forgot to add in another $7 million. The bid was opened, and all of a sudden they allowed them to add $7 million to a sealed bid that had been opened in public. And I took it to the Supreme Court because this is a real simple issue, right? I said, the lawyer said, this is good. I said, what's good? It's simple. Go to the Supreme Court of Alaska, and they said, we don't see a problem.
So basically, that was in the days before they just did no-bid contracts and engaged in whatever fraud they wanted and paid 100 times what something was worth to their buddy. I mean, now it's just out-and-out total criminality. John McCain goes to England, goes to the Rothschild Palace, raises a couple of $1 million. Every dollar is a felony. The news admits it's a felony, and he just says, go to hell. They're just completely lawless now. But please continue.
Well, they were there then. The telecommunications is probably right up there with the absolute rottenest, most corrupt, because I had no idea when I got into that business. I was offered I had to pay up from anywhere from 2 to 5% of the bid to get the job. I was offered money to not complain about losing a bid. I had no idea. I mean, it was just rotten clear to the top, and finally the state of Alaska quit going to bid just because of me, because I took them to the Supreme Court of Alaska a couple times. And that's what got me started doing this. And
by the way, just fighting for Access TV, payoffs to people. I've got people sent to prison for stealing money, PIs following us, all sorts of threats, cutting our show off cable, literally turning the switch off. I mean, exactly. It's so rotten. It's kind of like a tree. In fact, I have a tree in my backyard that we like. It's an oak tree. Thought it was healthy. All of a sudden, a big limb just fell off, and there's carpenter ants all in it. That's basically us. We look healthy, but under the surface, we're just nothing but a big fat maggot. Go ahead.
So, anyway, I really got involved in the research. I actually got the signatures, and I ran under the Patriot Party, which was a breakoff of Ross Perot, unknowing that was taken over by Farrakhan. And so anyway, I ran for governor of the state of Alaska, and I saw on the election results, I saw numbers go backwards. Can you believe that? They were scared spitless that I would just get, I wasn't going to win, but they didn't want the party established. But so anyway, I really got involved in this heavy because I am a guy that I want to know what's going on. I want the real truth. Because I was looking, I went all over. I met with the Montana Freemen, I met with the Republic of Texas people, and just to see what was really what they were up to. I knew the Montana Freemen personally, because back then I had money, And I got hooked up with Dan Metter, which is now deceased, and that's how I got involved in the IRS issues. And then Greg Pound here in the last year, I got involved with the child custody issues. Before that,
and that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to talk about is two subjects, the horror stories of the child issues and how it's totally lawless. And I've been there. I've watched it. I've been to court. You're right. It's not even reality. And then I also want to get into first these agencies for people to understand how illegitimate this government is.
Well, what I discovered is we have no government. It's been gone a long time because you have to understand the real basics of a constitutional republic. If it's of the people, by the people, for the people. There are some bright line issues. And by the way, before I forget to say this, the IRS is broke. It's absolutely, we're attacking it. But the bright line issues for a constitutional republic are quite simple. And these are tests that must be made, because anytime someone comes up to you, it's by what authority are you authorized over my life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, including property? For a constitutional republic, if we're the sovereigns, number one, we must have a contract called our Constitution. There's a limited delegation of power called, it's like a limited power of attorney. Okay, so this person comes up to me. Okay, your office, powers and duties, must be created either by the Constitution or by the legislature, defining what exercise, what part of it you're going to do. So number one, we've got to have the office. That's got to be created. Number two, to qualify for that office, there's only two ways you get there. You must have a certificate of election from the qualified electors, or number two, you must have a civil commission of which the signature is the evidence of the appointment. That was established back in Marbury versus Madison in 1803. So now we got two ways to get to the office. Number three, to enter that office then, you, number one, must have an oath of office, but it's an oath of office as a public officer, which means you have discretion. They just do oath of office. That's for employees, which I'll get to in a minute. And then when you get into this office, after you've done the oath of office as a public officer, to keep you honest, it was set up to have what's called a performance bond, which is known as official bond, where you must put up your personal assets to make sure you're honest. Now, in Alaska, we still have all of the official bonds on the books. Would you like to guess how many official bonds we have in Alaska?
None.
You got it, because we have no public officers. Now, so once that was established, the test that I came to, and over the years with child custody and the IRS, and the president of the Senate, Lyda Green, she's not going to run anymore, but she's president of the Senate out of Juneau, Alaska, said with agencies, this is right out of her office, we fund them, we do not control them, and they have no oversight. Now, when you go checking...
Let me stop you. Just an example for laymen out there, Ralph Winterroot. This is so important. His info is dead on, folks. Listen carefully. LCRA, private group with quasi-governmental power. They own most of the water in central Texas. They have SWAT teams. They have cameras up all over Austin. They surveil us all. They arrest people. They surveil people. They tried to, before I even knew who they were, about 12 years ago, said to the local radio station, we want to spend a bunch of money advertising. They don't advertise anything. It's just these public service announcements. But we don't like Alex Jones. We don't want it on his show. And we don't want him talking about us. Well, the program director and actually the manager said, I've never heard of anything like this, but they said they're going to advertise, but don't talk about them. Did you say something about them? And I said, no, I don't even know who the LCRA is. That's why I found out. I mean, that's how diabolical, but I didn't know who they were, and they were trying to make payments to keep me quiet. I mean, do you understand this? I mean, this folks, it's so shot, you have no idea. They got the force, they got the troops, they got the machine guns, and they rule you. And they're going to take your property. Go ahead, Ralph.
So now, I tracked this all the way back, and right after the Civil War, they did some very nefarious things. They usurped the executive and judicial power. The executive power of the United States, for 59 years later, finally the Supreme Court got around and restored part of that. But what they did is they set up what's called independent establishment, which means they're totally outside the government. And their reason was, well, they'll be free of all political people that are working on it, and they'll be a great thing. They're called independent agencies today. So what these things are, they sit outside of our government. And what they do is Congress or the state